Most people don't think, they react. Every opinion they hold, every decision they make is not born from clarity, but from noise. The noise of fear, the noise of habit, the noise of a world that teaches you what to think, but never how. But here is the truth. Thinking is not what happens to you, it's what you choose to do. The moment you learn to think differently, the moment you stop reacting, your mind begins to transform. You see patterns where others see chaos. You find calm where others find confusion. You begin to question, not to argue, but to understand. And that is when growth begins. Not the kind of growth you can measure, but the kind that you feel. The kind that changes the way you see yourself, the way you see others, the way you see the world. This is critical thinking mastery, a journey into the most powerful tool you will ever own, your mind. So take a deep breath, let the noise fade, and listen not just with your ears, but with your awareness. Because the moment you start to think for yourself, you start to live for real. Most people move through life without really thinking. They just react. They react to situations, to emotions, to other people's words. It's not because they are careless. It's because their minds have been trained to move fast, to make sense of things instantly, to survive. But survival thinking is not the same as conscious thinking, and that is the line that separates living on autopilot from living awake. The sleep of the modern mind. Every day you are surrounded by noise, opinions, news, reactions, algorithms. They tell you what is important, what is true, and what you should feel about it. And if you do not pause to question, the noise becomes your inner voice. That is the sleep of the modern mind, the quiet, comfortable illusion of awareness. You think you are making choices, but in truth, your patterns are making them for you. Critical thinking begins the moment you stop reacting and start noticing, seeing your own thoughts. The first step to waking up your mind is to see your thoughts clearly, without judgment, without trying to fix them, just observe. When you notice anger, do not fight it. When you feel anxious, do not rush to escape it. Instead, say softly to yourself, "I see you." That simple awareness turns reaction into reflection, because once you can see a thought, it loses the power to control you. Your thoughts are not facts, they are stories, and you can rewrite them. Try this small exercise at the end of your day. Replay one moment when you felt emotional, maybe irritated, embarrassed, or defensive. Ask yourself, what story was I telling myself? In that moment, you might be surprised to find that the story was not about the event, but about your assumptions behind it. The comfort of certainty. The biggest enemy of critical thinking is not ignorance, it is certainty. Certainty feels safe. It makes the world neat and predictable. But certainty also blinds you. It stops you from asking questions, from exploring, from growing. Curiosity, on the other hand, feels uncomfortable at first. It demands humility. It admits, "I do not know, but I want to understand." And that is when transformation begins. Ask yourself often, what if I am wrong? What if there is something I haven't seen yet? What would I learn if I stopped defending my opinion and started listening instead? Every time you ask, your mind expands, not because you get an answer, but because you become open enough to receive one. Escaping the loops. Every mind has loops, automatic ways of thinking that repeat like background music. Some loops sound like, "I always mess things up. No one ever listens to me. It's too late to change." These loops feel like truth, but they are just habits. You built them unconsciously, and now they play without your permission. To break a loop, you don't need to fight it. You only need to interrupt it. When the loop starts, take a slow breath and ask, is this thought helping me think clearly? If the answer is no, don't argue with the thought. Just replace it with a question that opens space, like, what else could be true? The loop will weaken over time, and slowly you'll start to see the difference between you and your patterns. Choosing awareness over speed. The world rewards quick reactions, fast emails, instant opinions, immediate replies. But clear thinking is not fast thinking. It is patient. It is quiet. It is the courage to say, let me think about that. Imagine your mind as a lake. When emotions are high, the surface ripples and distorts your reflection. If you want to see clearly, you don't need to fight the waves. You just wait. Let the water settle, and truth will reveal itself on its own. Slowing down is not weakness, it is intelligence in motion. Because in that pause, you gain something powerful: perspective. Asking better questions. Critical thinkers don't have all the answers, they just ask better questions. They ask why instead of who is to blame. They ask, what is really going on here, instead of how do I win this argument? They ask, what matters most right now, instead of what do others expect from me? Your mind becomes sharper every time you replace judgment with curiosity, because the more you understand, the less you need to control. Here's a gentle reminder. You don't need to prove you're right. You need to understand what is real. Truth does not need defense, it needs awareness. The freedom of thought. When you start to think for yourself, you begin to taste a new kind of freedom. It's quiet, subtle, but powerful. You stop being pulled by every opinion, every trend, every argument. You stop reacting to life and start responding to it. And that shift changes everything. Your decisions, your relationships, your peace. You become intentional. You start choosing instead of being chosen by your impulses. That's the real meaning of critical thinking. It's not about logic alone. It's about liberation. It's the freedom to see clearly, to choose consciously, and to live truthfully. No longer as a product of noise, but as the author of your own awareness. Reflection tonight. Before you sleep, take one quiet minute. Close your eyes and ask yourself, what thought owned my attention today? Was it fear, pride, worry, hope? Don't try to fix it, just notice it, because awareness itself is transformation. You don't wake up your mind in a single moment. You do it breath by breath, thought by thought, day after day. Each time you pause, question, and observe, your mind grows stronger, and little by little, the noise fades, until what's left is calm, clarity, and truth. Before you can master your thoughts, you have to see them, not from inside the noise of your mind, but from the stillness behind it. Your thoughts are like clouds. They come and go, they form shapes and disappear. But you are the sky watching them. That awareness, the one who observes, is the beginning of true critical thinking. Seeing without judging. Most people never look at their thoughts directly. They become their thoughts. When anger rises, they are anger. When fear shows up, they are fear. But there's another way to live. You can learn to see your mind the way you might watch a movie, without trying to rewrite the scenes as they happen. This skill is called self-awareness, and it changes everything.
Because when you can see your thoughts, you create distance between the moment and your reaction. That distance, even if it is only 1 second, is where freedom begins. The landscape of the mind. Imagine walking through a vast forest at night. You have a flashlight, your awareness. Wherever you shine it, the darkness retreats. What you see becomes less frightening, and what was invisible starts to make sense. Your mind works the same way. The parts you do not observe are the ones that control you. The stories you never question, those are the ones running your life on repeat. To see your own mind clearly, you must be willing to turn the light inward, even when what you find is not comfortable. The hidden patterns. Everyone has patterns, ways of thinking that repeat, quietly shaping how you see yourself and others. Some people always expect rejection, so they interpret silence as disapproval. Others believe they are never enough, so every compliment feels suspicious. Some rush to fix everything because peace feels too still to trust. These patterns are not flaws, they are survival codes written long ago from childhood, pain, and repetition. But what once protected you may now confine you. Seeing your patterns does not make you weak, it makes you awake. And once you see them, you can begin to choose differently. How to observe yourself. You do not need rituals or complex systems to know yourself. You just need pauses. When you feel defensive, pause. When you crave validation, pause when you are about to argue. And in that stillness, ask, what am I protecting right now? Is this response about the present or a story from the past? The moment you ask, you are no longer trapped inside the emotion. You are observing it like a scientist watching a spark in slow motion. Observation turns chaos into clarity. It is not control, it is understanding. Mindfulness in motion. Mindfulness is not just sitting in silence, it is learning to carry silence inside you while you move through the world. When you are washing dishes, notice the sound of the water, the temperature, the rhythm of your breath. When you walk outside, feel the ground under your feet. When someone speaks, listen not to reply, but to hear. Each moment of attention strengthens awareness like a muscle. And over time, you will begin to notice something powerful. Your mind does not control you as much as you thought. Thoughts still come, but they no longer drag you away. You start choosing which ones deserve your energy. That is not calmness, that is mastery. The courage to see bias. Even the most self-aware mind has blind spots. We all see the world through filters, through culture, memory, identity, fear, and desire. It takes courage to admit that your view of reality is not reality itself. That is not weakness, it is wisdom. When you start noticing your biases, you begin to reclaim your freedom to see clearly. Ask yourself, do I seek truth or comfort? Do I listen to understand or to confirm what I already believe? Awareness is not about blaming yourself. It is about catching the mind in the act of illusion and smiling when you do, because in that moment you have just stepped outside the illusion. Reflections in the mirror. At night, when the world is quiet, you can almost hear your own thoughts whispering. They tell stories about who you are, what you deserve, what is possible. Some of those stories are kind, some are cruel. All of them are temporary. You do not have to silence them. You only have to recognize, I am the one who hears the story, not the story itself. Every time you remember that, you become less reactive, less fragile, and more free. The mirror within you is not always flattering, but it is always honest. And honesty with yourself is the foundation of every kind of growth. Closing reflection. True self-awareness is not about fixing who you are. It is about finally meeting yourself without distortion. It is standing before the mirror of your own mind and saying, I see you, all of you, and I am ready to understand. That's where transformation begins, not by changing your thoughts, but by learning to watch them with curiosity, compassion, and calm.
because once you can see your own mind clearly, you can begin to shape it, not by force, but with gentle awareness that turns reflection into power. Your mind is a brilliant machine. It gathers, sorts, and reacts, all in milliseconds. But sometimes that brilliance becomes your prison, because hidden inside your thinking are quiet distortions, mental shortcuts that once helped you survive and now silently sabotage your clarity. These are the invisible traps of the mind, biases, assumptions, stories so subtle that you mistake them for truth. The brain that wants to be right. Your brain loves being right. It doesn't love truth, it loves consistency. It wants the world to confirm what it already believes, and when it does, you feel safe. That's why you notice information that agrees with you and overlook what does not. It's not laziness, it's wiring. This is called confirmation bias, and it is one of the most powerful traps of all. Imagine wearing glasses that slightly tint everything red. After a while, you forget they're on. The world just looks that way. That's what your beliefs do. They color your perception. And unless you stop to question them, you'll never see the world as it truly is, only as your mind prefers it to be. The anchor that holds you still. Another invisible trap is the anchoring effect, the tendency to cling to the first piece of information you receive, even when better evidence appears later. You hear a number, a price, a rumor, and it quietly shapes everything that follows. It anchors your expectations, and you begin judging all new information through that starting point. It's like setting your compass by a crooked magnet. No matter where you go, you drift slightly off course. The way out is not to distrust everything. It is to notice when something feels locked in, when you catch yourself defending an old opinion that no longer fits the new evidence, and ask, what if the first thing I heard was wrong? That single question reopens your mental map. The illusion of memory. Your memory is not a camera, it is a storyteller. Every time you recall a memory, you don't play it back, you rebuild it. You fill in blanks, smooth over edges, and unintentionally edit the past to make it fit the person you are today. That's why two people can live the same moment and remember different stories. Both feel real, but neither is perfectly true. When you understand that your memories are flexible, you become more compassionate toward yourself and others. You stop fighting over who is right and start exploring what might be true. The mind that fears uncertainty. The human mind hates not knowing. It craves closure, even if closure means clinging to a false answer. So it invents explanations, fills the silence, builds meaning out of fragments. That's why gossip spreads, why conspiracy theories comfort, and why we'd rather hold a wrong belief than sit quietly with uncertainty. But growth happens in the space of not knowing. Wisdom lives between question and conclusion. When you allow uncertainty to exist without rushing to fill it, you discover a deeper peace, one that doesn't depend on being right. Emotional reasoning. Sometimes we don't think with our minds, we think with our feelings. When something feels true, we treat it as true.
But feelings, as powerful as they are not evidence. They are weather, real, passing, and often unpredictable. If you have ever said, "I just know it," and later found out you were wrong, you have experienced emotional reasoning. To escape it, learn to hold two truths at once. I feel this strongly, and I might not be right. It is not contradiction, it is maturity. The crowd inside your head. Your mind does not think alone. It thinks within a tribe, family, culture, social media, group identity. This is where groupthink sneaks in, the silent pressure to agree, to belong, to avoid standing out.
The more you fit in, the less you question. And the less you question, the more your thinking becomes borrowed. Critical thinking does not mean rejecting the group. It means having the courage to keep your individuality within it, to listen deeply, and still decide consciously. Sometimes the most independent mind is not the loudest one. It is the quiet soul that can sit in a crowd and still think clearly for itself. How to disarm the traps. You cannot remove biases completely. They are part of being human, but you can learn to see them in real time. Every time you catch a bias, it loses a little of its power. Start small. Notice when your certainty spikes. Notice when your emotions steer your logic. Notice when you stop listening because you've already decided what someone means. That moment of noticing is not failure, it is victory, because awareness itself is the antidote. A practice of clarity. Once a day, pick one belief about yourself, about people, about life, and ask, where did this belief come from? Who taught it to me? Is it still serving who I want to become? Do not rush to an answer. Just listen to what rises in the silence. Sometimes truth does not shout, it whispers. The more you practice this, the more your mind loosens its grip on illusion. And in that space, you begin to see life as it really is. Complex, fluid, unpredictable, and beautifully free. Closing reflection. Your mind is powerful, but not perfect. It builds shortcuts to save you time, but those shortcuts often steal your depth. Critical thinking is not about erasing bias, it's about catching it in motion, smiling at it, and choosing awareness instead. You do not need to fight your mind, you just need to know how it moves. Because the moment you can see the invisible traps, they stop being traps at all. Most of the world will try to tell you what to think, what to believe, what to love, what success should look like. But real freedom, real intelligence comes from learning how to think. Not what to fill your mind with, but how to navigate it, how to question, analyze, and choose thoughts that serve truth, not comfort. Thinking well is not about collecting facts. It's about refining the way your mind moves, the machinery of clarity. Imagine your mind as a workshop. Every idea that enters it is raw material, some valuable, some useless, some dangerous. If you never learn how to use your tools, you will build fragile things. You will confuse noise for wisdom, confidence for competence. But when you know how to think, you can turn fragments of information into insight, direction, and calm. Critical thinking is not cold logic, it is warm awareness. It is the ability to pause, to ask, to see before you act. Logic as a lens. Logic is not about winning arguments, it's about staying honest with yourself. When you reason clearly, you begin to see the structure of thoughts, how one idea connects to another, how assumptions quietly shape conclusions. You start noticing patterns. If this is true, then that must follow. Or, if my feeling changes, does my truth change with it? You realize that thoughts are not random, they are chains. And clarity comes from tracing each link until you find the weak one. The goal is not perfection, it is awareness. When you can say, this argument sounds good, but the logic doesn't hold, you have already stepped into freedom.
The clearer your mind becomes, the freer your life will feel. Seeing clearly is not about having perfect vision. It is about learning to look without filters, without fear, without the need for the world to confirm what you already believe. Most people do not see reality as it is. They see it as they expect it to be. Their past becomes their lens, their emotions become the tint, their assumptions become the frame, and what they call truth is often just a reflection of their own mind. Your mind is constantly editing the world for you. It deletes what seems irrelevant, distorts what feels uncomfortable, and highlights what matches your story. You never see everything. You see a version of everything. That is why two people can look at the same event and walk away with opposite conclusions, each convinced they are right. The brain is not an objective camera. It is a selective narrator, weaving meaning around fragments of data. To see clearly, you must accept that your perception is not the whole picture. It is just one angle, beautiful but incomplete. Clarity begins when you observe without rushing to explain. When you look at a sunset, you do not need to analyze it to feel it. When you listen to someone, you do not need to prepare your reply. You can just listen. Observation is presence without judgment. When someone disagrees with you, do not defend. Observe. Watch your body tense. Watch your breath shorten. Watch your thoughts race. Then pause. That is awareness, and awareness is clarity. Your mind does not store reality. It stores interpretations. Something happens, you feel something, then your mind creates a story. Between what happened and what you told yourself, there is a space. That space is truth. Learn to separate the two. Assumptions feel like knowledge, but they block understanding. To see clearly, you must admit what you do not know. Uncertainty is honesty. Slow thinking creates clarity. When something feels urgent, when you feel certain, ask why. Fast thinking reacts. Slow thinking understands. Listen with your full attention, not to reply, but to understand. Understanding does not mean agreement. It means respect. Clarity grows where empathy lives. Truth can feel uncomfortable, but illusion is more dangerous. Truth may hurt, but it heals. Illusion feels safe, but it blinds. Clarity is not a one-time moment. It is a daily practice. Each day, you clean the lens again. You ask yourself, what do I believe? Is it true? Is it real or familiar? Stay curious. Stay honest. When you see clearly, you stop reacting to people and start understanding them. You realize everyone acts from what they see, and most are trapped in their own blind spots. That realization softens you. You stop taking things personally. You stop needing to win, because clarity shows something deeper than being right. It shows understanding, and understanding is a form of love. Seeing clearly does not make life easier, it makes it real, and in reality, you find peace. Peace comes from awareness, not control. The clearer you see, the less you fear, the less you assume, the less you suffer. Clarity does not change what you see, it changes how you see, and that changes everything. There is a quiet moment when you realize your perspective shapes your reality. That moment changes everything, because perspective is not just a view, it's the lens of your life. Most people think they see the world as it is, but no one does. We see through memory, through emotion, through belief. We live inside our interpretations, and the mind repeats them until they feel like truth. Shifting perspective is noticing the illusion. Reframing changes meaning. The event stays the same, but your understanding transforms, and with it, your power returns. Every person has a story, a reason, a hidden struggle. To shift perspective is to remember truth has layers.
That the person who hurt you may be hurting themselves. That the person who seems distant may be protecting their own fragile peace. Understanding does not excuse behavior. It explains it, and understanding is often the first step toward healing. When you see people as complex instead of cruel, you begin to move through life with less anger and more compassion. That is not weakness, that is emotional intelligence. One of the biggest traps of the mind is believing that your story is the story, but reality is rarely one-dimensional. When you only see through one lens, you shrink truth to fit your comfort zone. Every strong opinion has a shadow. Every belief excludes something it cannot yet understand. The shift comes when you realize your truth is valid, but it is not complete. Hold your perspective gently. Leave room for mystery, for contradiction, for evolution. Because the moment you think you fully understand, you stop learning. Imagine you are standing in a maze. From where you are, the path looks confusing. But if you rise and see from above, you understand where you are and where to go. Perspective lifts you from reaction to reflection. When you zoom out, the chaos starts to make sense. You see how every detour was a lesson, how every delay was protection, how every wrong turn shaped your depth. From above, nothing is wasted. Curiosity is the opposite of judgment. Judgment closes the mind. Curiosity opens it. Instead of saying, "This is how it is," ask, "What else could this be?" Instead of assuming motive, ask, "What might they be feeling?" Every question expands your awareness. One day, you realize the world did not change, you did. Every person you meet is a mirror. They reflect something you need to see, a strength you forgot, a flaw you denied, a lesson you delayed. Life keeps sending reflections until you finally look. Difficult people reveal your edges, the parts that still need growth. Sometimes the only way to shift perspective is to let go, to release the need to be understood, to release expectations. Clarity comes not from adding more thoughts, but from removing what no longer serves you. Letting go is not giving up. It is making space, space for a new way of seeing. When you widen your perspective, everything changes. Zoom in, you see the problem. Zoom out, you see the lesson. Zoom in, you feel pain. Zoom out, you see growth. Perspective does not remove pain, it gives it meaning, and meaning transforms suffering into wisdom. Perspective is power, not power over others, but power over your own mind. When you change how you see, you change how you live. Life stops being a battle and becomes something deeper. Every choice shapes your life. Every yes, every no builds your future. But decisions often feel unclear, like standing in fog. You fear the wrong path, you overthink the right one, and sometimes you stop moving. The more you seek certainty, the less clarity you find. There is no perfect choice, only choices you fully commit to. When you stop chasing perfection, you start making real decisions. The power of a decision is not in the result, it is in your commitment. A simple choice with full belief is stronger than a perfect choice made in fear. Clarity comes before decision. When you slow down, you see better. When your mind is calm, your intuition becomes clear. Intuition is quiet intelligence. Logic gives structure. Intuition gives direction. Together, they create balance. If you rely only on logic, you lose feeling. If you rely only on intuition, you lose stability. Balance creates wisdom. Every decision carries a shadow, the life you did not choose. But no one lives that path. You cannot miss what was not meant for you. Each path teaches you something. Even mistakes carry wisdom. Stop chasing the perfect choice. Choose with awareness. Indecision creates suffering. When you wait too long, life moves without you. Indecision feels safe, but it is slow loss. Growth always feels risky because it asks you to trust the unknown.
Every decision is creation. You shape your future with each step. Every choice says, "This is who I am becoming." Life responds to commitment, not hesitation. You do not need to see the whole path. You only need the next step.
Learning from the consequences. A decision's true value is revealed in what it teaches you afterward. Sometimes the outcome confirms your wisdom. Sometimes it exposes your blind spots. Both are gifts. If the decision led you to joy, celebrate it. If it led you to pain, study it. Ask yourself, what did I learn about myself from this? What truth was this experience trying to show me? Pain becomes wisdom when reflection turns regret into understanding. In a noisy world, values are your compass. They remind you what truly matters. Before any big decision, ask yourself, does this align with who I am or who I am pretending to be? Will this choice expand my peace or shrink it? When your choices are guided by values, you stop reacting. You become intentional. And when you choose with integrity, even if the outcome is uncertain, you live in peace. Not every decision will age well. That is okay. Sometimes you realize the path no longer fits who you are. Growth asks for new decisions, not because you failed, but because you evolved. The courage to begin again is the mark of growth. You are not meant to choose once. You are meant to keep choosing with deeper awareness each time. Life is a series of crossroads, and every decision shapes who you become. Do not fear the unknown. Fear the unexamined decision, the one made without awareness, without honesty, without heart. When you choose from clarity, no path is truly wrong. Every path leads you closer to yourself. Life will test you, not to break you, but to build you. Every storm you faced, every loss you survived, every moment you thought you could not continue was not punishment, it was training. Resilience is not never falling, it is rising again. People mistake resilience for toughness, but resilience is not hardness, it is flexibility. It bends, it adapts, it survives. The strongest trees do not resist the wind, they move with it. To be resilient is to stay soft inside, even when life is hard, because softness keeps you human. There are moments when life hits without warning. You feel lost, confused, disconnected. This is where most people panic, but there is no going back, only forward. Resilience is not rushing healing, it is allowing the fall to teach you so you rise stronger. The fall is not failure, it is proof you are alive, and anything alive can rise again. The most powerful conversations are the ones you have with yourself. In difficult times, your inner voice can destroy you or support you. When it says you cannot, answer, "Watch me." When it says it's over, answer, "It is only changing." You do not need to silence the negative voice, you need to answer it with truth. Resilience begins with what you tell yourself. Pain narrows your vision, but resilience expands it. When something feels unbearable, ask, what if this is not the end, but the middle of transformation? Every challenge carries a lesson. Patience, courage, humility. It's not about pretending everything is okay. It's about remembering it will not last forever. Storms pass, and when they do, you see that what broke you was shaping you. Resilience is not avoiding pain, it is transforming it. Heartbreak teaches empathy. Rejection teaches self-worth. Loss teaches impermanence. Pain becomes wisdom when you stop running from it. Instead of asking, "Why me?" ask, "What is this teaching me?" That question changes everything.
Healing is not linear. It moves like waves, forward, backward, up, down. Some days you feel strong, some days you feel weak. That is not failure, that is rhythm. Do not judge the process, let it unfold. You are not behind, you are becoming. When everything feels uncertain, anchor within yourself. Your peace does not depend on the world, it depends on your connection to yourself. Breathe, stay present, feel this moment. No matter what happens, this moment is yours. You do not need to control everything. You need to center yourself. There is a resilience that does not fight, it flows. Surrender is not weakness, it is trust. Trust that life has direction, even when you cannot see it. Sometimes resilience is taking another step. Sometimes it's resting. Sometimes it's whispering, I trust the process. You have fallen before, and you are still here. You have been afraid, and you kept going. That is strength. Resilience is not something you build once. It's something you remember again and again. You do not need to be unshakable. You need to return to yourself. Inside you, there is a quiet light. It never goes out. Resilience is living from that light. Every time you rise again, you rewrite your story. You say, I am still here. I am still open. And that openness is your power. Because a heart that stays open will always find a way. Resilience is not being unbreakable. It is being endlessly alive. Every challenge is an invitation to grow.
Life doesn't test you to see if you can survive. It tests you to reveal who you can become. And growth, real, lasting growth, doesn't come from comfort. It comes from friction. The mind of growth is not about avoiding pain. It's about using pain as fuel for transformation. The seed of struggle. Imagine a seed buried in the dark. It could easily mistake the soil for a grave, but in truth, the darkness is its beginning. It's where it breaks open, where it pushes against resistance to reach the light. That's what challenges do for you. They bury you for a moment, not to end you, but to root you. Without pressure, you'd never discover your own depth. Without struggle, you'd never feel your strength. Growth doesn't happen because life gets easier. It happens because you get wiser. From reaction to reflection. Most people repeat their struggles because they react faster than they reflect. A challenge appears, they resist it, blame it, try to escape it. But the moment you pause, the moment you reflect, you step out of the storm and into awareness. Reflection turns chaos into clarity. It helps you see the pattern beneath the pain. Ask yourself, what is this trying to teach me? What belief is this experience asking me to outgrow? Every problem carries a mirror. If you look closely, you'll see yourself. Not who you were, but who you're becoming. The growth mindset. A fixed mind says, this is how I am. A growth mind says, this is how I can become. The difference is enormous. The first builds walls, the second builds wings. A growth mindset doesn't deny difficulty, it studies it. It understands that failure is feedback, not finality. When something doesn't work, you don't collapse, you adjust, you learn, you evolve. And slowly, without noticing, you stop fearing mistakes. You start seeing them as milestones, because every stumble forward is still movement forward. Pain as a teacher. Pain is a strange teacher. It rarely speaks gently, but it always speaks truth. It tells you where you've been holding on too tightly, where you've been avoiding what needs to change, where your expectations no longer fit your reality. If you listen without resentment, pain becomes a compass. It points toward the parts of you that are ready to grow.
Instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" ask, "What part of me is this trying to awaken?" Growth doesn't demand that you love the pain, it asks that you learn from it. The alchemy of challenge. There's a quiet kind of magic in those who've suffered and still choose to stay kind. It's the magic of alchemy, turning wounds into wisdom. You don't heal by forgetting what happened. You heal by changing what it means to you. Every disappointment can become discipline. Every loss can become perspective. Every heartbreak can become empathy. That's the alchemy of a growth mind. It takes what was meant to break you and turns it into a bridge. Letting go of control. Growth requires surrender, not of effort, but of control. You can't evolve if you cling to how things should be. You can only evolve when you accept things as they are. Control keeps you rigid. Acceptance keeps you adaptable. The caterpillar doesn't control its transformation. It dissolves into stillness, trusting that something greater within it knows how to rebuild. That's how growth feels, messy, uncertain, and sacred. Because the moment you stop forcing life, life starts moving through you. The quiet strength of patience. Real growth doesn't announce itself, it unfolds in silence. One choice, one insight, one surrender at a time. It's not a sudden leap, it's a steady becoming. When nothing seems to be happening, remember, roots grow in the unseen. You are changing even when you can't see it. Be patient with the process. Transformation is not a race, it's a rhythm, and your only job is to keep dancing with it. The company you keep. Growth is contagious, but so is stagnation. Surround yourself with those who remind you of your potential, not your limitations. People who challenge you to think deeper, to love kinder, to rise higher. You don't need to cut off everyone behind you. Just make sure the ones closest to you are walking in the same direction, towards awareness, not avoidance, because the mind of growth flourishes in the light of connection. Gratitude for the journey. Gratitude doesn't deny pain. It simply reminds you that pain isn't the whole story. You can be grateful while grieving. You can be thankful while growing. Gratitude shifts your focus from what's missing to what's emerging. It turns survival into expansion. It makes every step of the journey sacred. When you can look at your past and thank it for what it taught you, that's not weakness, that's mastery. Closing reflection. Growth is not about becoming someone new. It's about remembering the strength you always had beneath the fear. Challenges don't come to punish you, they come to polish you. Each time you rise, you become more whole, more awake, more real. And one day, you'll look back on every struggle and whisper to yourself, "It was all preparing me to be this version of me." That's the mind of growth, not escaping life's storms, but learning how to dance in the rain until the clouds turn to light. There comes a moment, quiet, almost invisible, when you realize that all the chaos, all the lessons, all the moments you thought were breaking you were actually shaping you. You wake up one morning and something inside you feels different. The noise has softened. The need to prove has faded. You no longer chase peace. You are peace. That is the mark of an evolved self. Not someone who has all the answers, but someone who has stopped being afraid of the questions. The quiet confidence. True confidence doesn't shout. It doesn't need to announce itself. It's the stillness that comes from knowing who you are and what you stand for, even when no one else sees it. The evolved self no longer seeks validation. You don't need applause to know your worth. You don't need agreement to stand firm in your truth, because you've learned that peace is not found in being right, it's found in alignment.
Alignment means your thoughts, words, and actions move in the same direction as your values. No pretending, no performing, just presence. When you live in alignment, decisions become lighter, relationships become deeper, and life begins to flow with quiet precision. The simplicity of purpose. Purpose isn't something you find out there, it's something that awakens in here. It's not a job title or a grand mission, it's the simple act of living consciously, of bringing meaning to whatever you touch, washing dishes with awareness, listening to someone without needing to fix them, doing small things with great sincerity. Purpose is not about the size of what you do, it's about the presence you bring to it. When you stop chasing purpose, you start living it, because purpose isn't discovered, it's embodied. Freedom from comparison. The evolved self no longer measures life through the eyes of others. You realize that comparison is the thief of both peace and progress. Someone else's pace is not your delay. Someone else's success is not your failure. You're walking your own timeline, perfectly calibrated for your lessons, your timing, your growth. You stop asking, "Am I behind?" and start asking, "Am I becoming?" Growth has no schedule. Awakening has no deadline. You are right where you need to be. Living lightly. The evolved self learns the art of carrying less resentment, less attachment. You begin to see how much suffering comes from holding too tightly to people, to outcomes, to identities. When you loosen your grip,
You don't lose what matters. You simply stop strangling it. Life becomes lighter, not because it's easier, but because you've stopped resisting it. Freedom isn't about having everything. It's about needing less and appreciating more. Compassion as wisdom. The more you evolve, the less you judge. You begin to see that everyone is fighting a silent battle, each person doing the best they can with the level of awareness they have. Judgment becomes understanding. Anger becomes empathy. Detachment becomes compassion. You realize that forgiveness isn't about excusing someone's behavior. It's about releasing your own suffering. You can wish someone peace without inviting them back into your life. That's not weakness, that's mastery. Because true strength is gentle. It doesn't need to control. It simply understands. The still mind. An evolved mind isn't one that never thinks. It's one that knows when to be quiet. You stop believing every thought that passes through. You start seeing thoughts for what they are, temporary clouds in a vast sky. Meditation is no longer an activity. It becomes your way of being, moving through the world with awareness, not attachment. You listen more, you react less, and in that stillness, life begins to whisper back. Because clarity isn't found in more thinking, it's found in less noise. The grace of impermanence. Everything you love, everything you fear, everything you think defines you will change. And instead of resisting that truth, you learn to bow to it. Impermanence is no longer terrifying, it's liberating. Because if everything changes, then every moment is a chance to begin again. You don't need to cling. You don't need to chase. You just need to be here, fully, presently, gratefully. The evolved self understands nothing lasts forever, and that's what makes it beautiful. Service over self. At some point, your growth stops being about you. You begin to see that wisdom is meant to be shared, not preached, but embodied. You help others not from superiority, but from solidarity, because you remember what it felt like to be lost in the dark. The evolved self doesn't seek to impress, it seeks to uplift.
You realize the purpose of growth isn't to rise above others, it's to reach back and lift them with you. Returning home. After all the searching, all the striving, you find yourself back where you started. But now you see it differently. The external world hasn't changed much, but your perception has. You used to chase happiness. Now you create it. You used to look for love. Now you become it. You've come home, not to a place, but to yourself. And that truly is the destination every soul is moving toward. Closing reflection. The evolved self isn't a different person. It's the real you, uncovered, unguarded, unafraid. You no longer live by reaction, but by awareness. No longer by fear, but by faith. You understand that life was never asking you to be perfect. It was asking you to be present. Because when you live with clarity, with openness, with purpose, you stop existing in fragments. You become whole. You become light. You become free. So here you are, at the end of this journey, but maybe at the beginning of something much greater. Because the real change doesn't happen when you listen. It happens when you live what you've heard. Every insight, every pause, every moment of awareness you felt in this audiobook, it's not just information, it's transformation waiting to unfold inside you. Let this be your reminder. You don't need to rush your evolution. You just need to stay awake for it. Every breath is a chance to begin again. Every challenge is a teacher. Every silence is a doorway to your next awakening. And if something in you has shifted, even slightly, then this wasn't just another audiobook. It was a conversation between your old self and the one you're becoming. If this message spoke to you, take a moment, breathe it in, and let it ripple outward. Subscribe to Sleep Success Audiobook, your space for calm reflection, quiet transformation, and powerful ideas that help you rise, not by force, but by awareness. Turn on the notification bell so you don't just watch the next chapter, you live it. And if this touched your heart, leave a comment below. Share one insight, one shift, one truth that woke something in you. Because when you speak it, you make it real. Remember, your peace is your power, your awareness is your freedom, and your story is still being written. This is Sleep Success Audiobook. Thank you for listening, and thank you for becoming.